And we'll start there. Just who are you, and what is your connection to Freeport? And then we'll start talking about their experiences and their stories. So we'll begin with you, Mrs. Moore-Howard.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Audrey Moore-Howard. I am a native of Freeport. I am married to a wonderful husband. We have 10 children. I worked for the district for 30 years, and I'm now on the Freeport School Board and loving it.
I am Denero Thomas. I am a lifelong resident of Freeport. I am also the founder and starter of a project called the Soil Project, and it's about the history, Black history of Freeport. And I'm married. I have 4 kids. And I don't know what else Audrey said because I wanted to piggyback off of that and make it sound like that. But I'm a lifelong resident of Freeport, and I look forward to telling you my story.
So our topic is really about being Black in Freeport, right? What does that mean? And for you, what does that look like? So your experience, not necessarily as a board member or educator, but just being a Black, and maybe adding on woman, and as a Black man in Freeport. We'll start with you, Mr. Thomas.
For me, being a Black male,
Turn that one on.
for me being a Hello? All right. So for me being a Black male, my experience in Freeport has been wonderful. I moved to Freeport when I was 5 years old, 1988, and I ended up attending, what is this school? Not Megan Luther. Oh my goodness. I have one. Oh my gosh, I got a brain fart. All these people looking at me right now. Tri-County. I was the first Black male to attend Tri-County, and when I went there, I attended Tri-County from kindergarten to 4th grade, and halfway through my year of 4th grade, I went to Taylor Park. And that experience coming from Tri-County, being one of the only Black kids, even though I didn't see it at the time, you don't realize it until you get older and you realize I was the first Black kid doing the other things, but when I was young, going from Tri-County to Taylor Park was a night and day experience. And so we would always have a lot of prayer, we'd always get Bible stories, and if we got in trouble, they would always make you go into a corner and like make sure you pray over there so you'd be crying and, oh Lord Jesus. And so when I ended up going to Taylor Park halfway through my 4th grade, schooling, it was such oh my gosh, it was an awakening, because when I went there, I didn't know any of these kids. It was on the east side of town, and when I got there, all the kids were like, all the new, you're the new guy, and so all the girls were liking me and want to get with me. I didn't know any of these people. I was scared, and I remember I had a friend, man, God bless him, man, Lawrence Lacey. They were all getting on me. They were like mad at me, and these kids were like ready to, fight me. And I'm scared because I'm coming from Taylor Park, and I'm just like, Lord Jesus, I'm just over there praying. And he was like, let's beat him up. Let's beat him up and take our girls. And I remember thinking, okay, all right, you gotta go pray in the corner. I remember thinking, like, trying to pray. And I remember thinking, I'm so scared of this. I'm not prepared for this. And so when I started, getting to know everybody and being in Taylor Park and just seeing that, the difference from growing up in Taylor Park, we were predominantly around a lot of white people, and then you come to Taylor Park and you have all these different Black kids. It was such an awakening for me. To be honest, up to that point, I hadn't seen race. I hadn't even thought about it as race. When you're a kid, you just see your friends, you see all those different things. When I went to Taylor Park, I felt Black. I realized I'm Black and I'm out of the way, and I didn't know what was going on. And so my experience early on was just something trying to figure out how to navigate that until I got a little bit older.
I guess I didn't have any incidents or accidents or anything along those lines. Growing up, I went to Taylor Park, and of course the majority of us there were people of color. And then I went to Carl Sandburg School, and that's when things began to shift for me. My parents did us a disservice in raising us because we were raised that people are people. we're all human. We all bleed red. And so when I experienced that racial tension, I didn't know what to do with it because I had never been taught that we are different and we have problems. And so coming up, it was a little hard, but then we adjusted. Again, we love the same, we just don't look the same.
Thank you. So let's lean in a little bit more and go deeper as both of you have shared your stories about identifying and understanding when racial equity or inequity started to happen for you. So share a story where it really just came to light that there needed to be healing in your life with racial interactions that you may have had in Freeport.
The first time that I was angry about racial tension and that there were differences. I was in high school and we were doing the play Cinderella, and we had a black Cinderella and a white prince, and at the end they were supposed to kiss. And it was one day during rehearsal, we had all these people show up and they were wanting to protest the play because there was no way they were going to have that kiss at the end. And so we all agreed, okay, they were going to pull the prince, and so we all agreed. Well, we didn't know, the cast didn't know that the prince and the Cinderella had come up with their own idea. And so at the end, they were supposed to turn their head and just let their cheeks touch. And so it was, you could hear a pin drop. And so the prince kissed her on the lips, and all you could hear was, and no one said a word, and the prince took a bow. And so again, me and my being naive couldn't understand what the problem was. Again, we are people. We are humans. The only difference is it's the color of our skin, I thought. And the parents wanted to sue the school district. And the son said the district didn't do it, I did.
Who was the drama instructor that?
Do you remember? Test my memory. I don't know, but it was my junior year in 1976.
So that would have been, yeah. Miss Lloyd?
No, it was a man.
Esther.
That's who it was.
Because my daughter was the other Cinderella.
Wow.
For me, it was ninth grade. I was in Avid class, and at that time, Avid would challenge you to be in honors classes. And in ninth grade, we were in honors English class, and we had all the black kids in that honors class, and a lot of people felt like we shouldn't have been in there. I felt like I shouldn't have been in there because I was a terrible student, but I'm happy that they pushed me. And we had a project to do in honors class, and I, based off the student that I was, I ended up getting an A+ in this project. It was a really extensive project, and I really took it serious. And I remember the teacher at the time, he was just like, you couldn't have wrote this, you plagiarized this, you've never done this kind of work, you can't do this work. And I was like, well, normally I don't do this kind of work. But I really took this serious, like I really did. He was like, no, and he got so mad, he went and protested about, putting these black kids into the honors class. And it's so funny how fate would have it years later. I moved into my house, and guess what? That teacher lives next door to me. And we have since become, over the time, we become closer. I reminded him of that. And so we have fixed that relationship, but at that time, he didn't know at that time. And on top of that, I was a little bit naive to even be mad at him at that point, because I'm like, I'm just a terrible student. But it took me time to realize what he was really trying to get at. And the fact that he went so far to try to, get me out of that class, it really upset me. But the experience has allowed me to realize that I can always overcome. I've always been trying to be an overdoer and an outdoer. And so having that experience, man, really taught me a lot.
Yeah, but you shouldn't have to.
Great stories, and really hearing about how some of this starts in our schools, right? In our schooling, in our upbringing. And I often share with educators that trauma sometimes happens in schools more so than in community, right? These things that are happening. So when we think about racial healing and our experiences, what does that mean to you when you look at racial healing? We asked our other panelists that question. We want to pose that with you all as well. What does a day of racial healing for Freeport community mean to you?
I would say, for me personally, I think with my project, the soil, right? When I found, when I had the idea of the soil, I took a job working for the city of Freeport and the city cemetery. And then prior to that, it was just a job. I needed to take this job. And when I started, I took it because, first of all, you can get on a zero-turn lawnmower. I'd never been on one of those things. And that thing is like a golf cart. It's like a blades on it. But man, I had such a ball of being on that thing. And so I would ride on that, that zero-turn lawnmower. And sometimes I would go in and out of these headstones. I would try to go as fast as I could just to make it fun. And one day, and if you know anything about the city cemetery, especially in the summertime, there's a group of people that always walk through that city cemetery. It might be a couple of you in here, I don't know. And so they are very particular. And there's 10,000 people buried in that city cemetery. And so if you do anything, I don't know how they know, but they will go tell, they will go snitch on you for doing anything. And this time in particular, I'm going through this headstone, and I ended up smacking this headstone, like knocking it over. I'm scared because I'm looking around because I'm like, somebody is going to see this thing and tell them. And so I ended up fighting, finally getting this headstone, up. And when I looked at the headstone, I realized, man, this guy had the same birthday as mine. And he had died like in 1910. And just from seeing that just intrigued me. I'm like, yeah, I want to see who this person is. And so I started looking him up. And I realized this guy was like one of Northern Illinois' like first senators, or he was something like that. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And so it just intrigued me. Okay, let me start looking, not necessarily for more history, but it was like, let me see who else I can find who has the same birthday as mine. And in that process, I started seeing, hold on, this is a group of people that are buried here, and their last name is Saxby. This is interesting. We have a Saxby Street. Or, all right, over here we have a whole group of Detmers. All right, we have a Detmer Street over here. And so from there, I was just like, hold on, there's more history. There's more people in this grave. And then as I started, doing that, I started realizing that the segregation that was in the city cemetery and just how that was set up and learning the history. And man, when I decided, I ended up having like a Saul on the road to Damascus when, God talked to him and changed him. So I'm sitting there, I'm listening to all this church music as I'm just riding and, podcasts and all these different things. And man, I had God talk to me. Like, he talked to me in my voice, but it wasn't me. And it was right on the right side of my body. I heard it. And secondly, I'm one of those people that can walk through a city cemetery in the dark. It doesn't bother me. But when I felt that, man, it scared the hell out of me, right? So I stood up, and it was like right, if you know the city cemetery, it's that long road, but there was a four-way stop like directly in the middle. I would happen to be right there. And when I stood up, I took my headphones off, and I'm looking around because I'm like, man, I heard that dude talk to me. But it was me, but I heard him say it. It was like, do the history, learn the history of Freeport. And from there, it started intriguing me. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, man, I'm learning the history, and I'm learning about all of these wonderful people that have founded the city of Freeport. And I thought, how many other people could learn this kind of history? Because I had an opportunity to work for this producer from Freeport, Illinois. His name was Manuel Seal, big producer. And he would always talk about the Me Academy. And he was like, man, everything you do, you have to start with me. And it stood for mindsets and environment. And what it did for me, once I started, I was like a lot of other people that grew up in Freeport, that when you come here and you see how Freeport starts, and as you get older, it seems like it just gets terrible. Things are getting out of here. So I was one of those pessimists of Freeport. I hate it. I'm tired of Freeport. Whatever. When I tell you, when I learned about this history of Freeport, it changed my mindset, not just on of a lot of people and how I thought about Freeport. And so I was like, man, other people need to see this history. I think once you start seeing your community, the people that shaped it, whether they were black, white, purple, pink, it started changing my mindset about how I saw Freeport, how I saw the people in Freeport. And as I started getting more of that history, you know, I'm sharing this history. I ended up coming across one of my old school teachers, which is Dr. Finch. Sorry if I'm taking too long too. His name is Dr. Ed Finch. And I just wanted to learn the history of Freeport. And when I sat down and I ended up meeting Ed Finch, he was like, Denero, you need to tell not just the history of Freeport, because the white history is out there. You need to tell the black history. You need to tell the full story to kind of get it. And I thought, you know what, I guess I didn't even think about the black history of Freeport. I didn't even look into it. When I started learning that history of Freeport, the black history of Freeport, I realized, wow, we have some amazing people here, both black and white. And so my thing, it wasn't necessarily a program about race. It was just really kind of adding that lost history into it, because I realized, man, when you think about your city, you think about, man, I hate all the different things that you see, but when you start learning that history, it kind of gives you more equity in that community. I start realizing I want other people to learn this history. If you understand that people that kind of paved these roads, literally paved these roads, when I look at the Saxby family, they have a literal road after them. I thought, man, these people, I want to know who they are. I don't care what color they are. And I started seeing the history that they did, and I'm started looking at buildings downtown, and I'm seeing all of these different histories, and I'm learning this. It made me appreciate my community so much more. It made me love my community. It made me love everybody there. There was so many people, Dr. Randall in particular, who has blessed me. Dr. Randall, Dr. Alvarado, Dr. Finch, the Historical Society. Those are, you get every color. You get black, white, you get Mexican and all that. You get everything that happened. I realized all of those people were dedicated in getting that history and helping me get this project off. And it just has been a blessing. It changed my mindset about Freeport and the people in it. And I realized, man, we have so much wonderful history, so many wonderful people here. I found my wife here, getting married here. My kids, I've been having the opportunity when I worked for Manual Travel Country, do all these different things. Like she had said, she had left Freeport 14 times. I left Freeport, I don't know how many times I came back. It's always been home. My parents had moved away, everybody was gone, and I just like, I want to be back in Freeport. It's always been my community, and I always was determined to change the mindset and the environment of this community. And I believe that learning the history of it, learning who I was, my own personal history, my family, it made me respect and change, you know, look how I look at Freeport. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I want you to hold on to some of that, because we're going to expound on that once Mrs. Moore Howard is done.
For me, this is a start, but this can't be the end. We have to continue putting in the work to make the changes, to make things better. We have a generation that's coming up, and some that are already here, that have no idea the history, the people, the avenues, directions. You know, they have no idea, and they don't want to learn. We as people, adults, we need to go back to teaching from the beginning, as hard as it might be. But I was talking to a young man, Breonna Taylor's picture was up, and he had no idea who she was. And it broke my heart, because it's not of importance to them. And so we sit here and we talk about what we need to do. Ms. Paulette made the statement that the people who need to be here aren't here. And so we've got to learn how to draw those people in order for us to continue to heal amongst ourselves as people, and then collectively. So it starts and it continues.
So we're going to kind of shift, because we're talking about understanding the history of Freeport, right? Understanding the people in Freeport. But there's also other stories and other history that people keep lifting. And how do we counteract the game and the violence that people hear in our community, right? Because that's part of the racial inequity, that Black people who live in Freeport are part of gangs or drugs or activity that's illegal, right? And that story, honestly, is heavier than what is in a gravesite and the past ancestors, right? So the reality is, how can not just this day, but this part of what we're doing, get out into the community and smother that story that continues to lift up in our Freeport community? I'm gonna let this Howard start.
Well, you said it right there. We have to get out. They're not going to come to us. And so we have to go to them. And that means beating the streets. And I don't have a problem doing that. But that's the only way we're going to reach our young people, is we have to go to them. We have to teach them. There's babies having babies, and they haven't been taught. And so the generation just continues, and it continues, and it continues. And so, again, we have to get out there in order to meet them. And we can't come in our own agenda, because they won't receive us like that. We have to meet them where they're at and explain to them where we want them to go. And continue to encourage them, even though they might be doing something that you don't agree with. Let them know there's good in you. You can do better. There's other things you can be doing besides sitting on the corner, smoking, drinking, playing loud music, walking down the middle of the street. But we've got to meet them in love. That's the thing. With no judgment, no condemnation. Because we were young at one time, and we didn't have it all together. So why do we expect them to have it all together?
I think that, I grew up on Chicago Street, Chicago and Iroquois. My father was a pastor. It was the old Emmanuel Lutheran Church right there. And I guess it would be considered the hood today. But at the time, there were violence. There was all these different things that happened in that community. And I think sometimes the idea is that those people that live in those communities, that people think that they want to be there, or it just is what it is. A lot of those people don't want to be there. They want to get out. They want to change their community. But sometimes when you can only go as far as what you see, and if you don't see anybody doing these kind of things, you haven't seen anybody come up out of there, it's hard for them to kind of have an idea of that I can change, or I can get up out of here as well. I think in order to change that for Freeport, I think we have to start, like she said, with the kids. We have to start with the youth. I myself have done over 100 presentations in the school, and from kindergarten to high schoolers. And I tell you, high school, by the time they get in high school, 11th, 12th grade, they do not care anymore. When you're talking, they just look at you like, man, get up out of here. They do not care. I thought that they would appreciate this thing. They do not care. But I tell you, and so, but what I started finding out, it was, man, those little kids, that 5th, 6th graders, those kindergartners, that when I was telling them about history, they were like, so Mr. Thomas. And I'm like, wait, I wasn't even doing this for the kindergartners, but they were the ones that were really in it. It was the 5th, 6th, that 5th to about 8th grade, that's where you catch them at, because they're the ones, they're enthusiastic, they have yet to be jaded by, the world, they haven't gotten to politics, all these different things. And I think if you literally, like she said, you go to them where they're at, educate them, and you start showing them identity. I think it starts with your own personal identity. Learning who you are, looking at yourself differently, learning your own family history. I think it allows you to kind of realize, man, my family name, you have to understand that there's power in that name. And I think if we teach that, how they view themselves when they get on the street, how they see people, how people see them, I think it'll change. And I don't think it's just I don't think there's some policy or some money that we can throw at this thing and change it. I really think that it is really groundwork that we have to literally get in, meet them where they're at, have those conversations. What do you guys think? Because the kids are way smarter than what you think. I don't think we need to dilute any of this information. you really give it to them the way how it is, because that's how they're seeing the world. No matter what we do, like I look at my daughter who is 7, I can tell her all day, but she will tell me right off the bat, I'm like, well, babe, we gotta do X, Y, Z, and she'll tell me, well, Dad, you did whatever. And I'm like, but no, I'm telling you, but I saw you do this. How do you? And I was like, well, my mom would have been like, just shut up and do what you gotta do. At that time I realized I can't do this to my child, because she was just like, no. Because we would always preach like, no, I will allow you to speak. If you have something to say, I want you to be able to voice it. And then you realize, hold on, that it came back up on me and it bit me in my butt. But those kids, I think we really need to have those conversations, involve them in what we're trying to do in the community. I think as adults sometimes, we have adult problems and we try to adult it. But I think having kids and really having them involved in this process, I think that would be how we can change the community of Freeport, really getting them to identify with themselves, then they can see everybody else different.
I'm gonna really hit with a couple of hard questions. So as we're talking about making a difference in our community, connecting to our youth, how, as Principal Kleindale mentioned, how can we engage our white communities? Because they're listening, and I'm not going to walk up to a black student and say, hey, or a black child, you need to do better. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm not comfortable. And then I'm not comfortable telling the history. And how will I be received if I don't look like the students? And the same thing that Mr. Viveros and Mr. Caligacion stated. How do we connect students who don't look, or I keep saying students and I apologize, how do we connect our children, our adults, our parents, and meet them where they are and be successful at it when we don't look or come from their backgrounds? How can we empower them to do that? What do you have to say?
I personally think that, once again, it is through learning the history. So a lot of people we have a lot of new teachers or a lot of people that are new into Freeport. And so when you're coming into Freeport, you're coming into a community that you're not familiar with, people you do not know, you don't know the history of these people. And so a lot of times we'll have, especially in education, you have a lot of women, white women that are teaching black kids in particular. And so when you get that it's always a mass divide between black males and white female teachers that we tend to have often. And when you don't identify or don't know the history or what this person is going through, it's hard to connect, and they're going to look at you all like you're white, you don't get any of those things. But I think literally learning that history. There was a program in Miami where they had new doctors come in, and they had to go through history education training where they taught them the history of that local community. And so when you learn the history of that community, I'm able to identify with those patients, those people that I'm talking to, because I understand where they're coming from. I understand the language, I understand how they move. And I think having that, educating almost the teachers in a way to learning the history, learning the students that we're talking to, I think it makes it easier. I can identify with, sight, sounds, and smells. If I can identify with what you're listening to, what you're into, what you're talking about, I think I can kind of approach it a little bit different. So I think that's how we do it, is, through our history, educating through that way.
Thank you.
I agree.
We need to be mindful. I wouldn't suggest anyone go solo if you've never done it before. It's just like going to an AA meeting. When you go in and you don't know what to expect, and you look around and everyone's looking at you, and you have to stand up and say, hi, that's what you do when you walk the streets. You just make your presence known. Hey, how you doing? I'm just here, just wanting to let you guys know that we're here for you. What are your concerns? What are your thoughts? What do we need to do different? What would you like to see happen? Don't come and just tell them. Ask them questions. Get some feedback, because that's the only way their mindset is going to change if they know that you are really genuinely concerned and you want things to happen. They can tell. They know. We have some intelligent kids. I was just telling Mr. De Niro that I have a son who is so smart, but he's so stupid. He knows everything. He has the answers. You know, reading is fine. I'm all for reading, but he reads everything, and then he has to give you his synopsis of what the writer wrote about his book.
Yeah. That was very much.
And he knows. He's had conversations with them, but he'll beat the streets when he's home.
Yeah.
He's on the corners. He's hanging with the kids. He's a grown man, but he's reaching them at their level, and that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
We have to come to their level, to their environment, think the way that they think. Not that it might be right or wrong, but we have to understand what they are thinking, and then be mindful of those things.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing that we need to create spaces, right? We need to create spaces for us to have, like, even a forum, right? So have young people come up and speak about what it is that they're encountering in Freeport, right? Let us sit in the audience and let them have the platform to share and give us the feedback, and then share with us how we can help them. And then at that place, we pick and choose what works best for us, right? Maybe we can help them in church, or maybe we can volunteer at the school, or maybe we can go with a community and walk and meet them at the corners. But I think what I'm hearing is give them a space, create those spaces for them, which would be nice next steps, but then also educate through history, right? Our community needs to feel valued. Everyone needs to feel valued, but what you don't know will not connect you to it. So we have to find a way to connect them to the history and feeling a belonging within our community, right? So that's what I'm hearing as next steps for us to move with in this particular event. So our final question is very much similar to what we asked the panel. When you think about Freeport, what would make it a more just Freeport? And what would you tell somebody who is not familiar with Freeport? What would you share with them, your story about Freeport?
I would say, I think in order to make it more just Freeport, there was a word that I came across. It is a Yiddish word in the Jewish community. We don't have a word for it in America. It's called fargin. Fargin is finding joy in the success of others. And what it is also where, with most people, what they do is when you're in any community, you're always thinking, what is the finances, or what can I extract from this community for my own self to gain something? But the most important thing is, what can I impart into this community? What can I put in? And so that others are able to get that information and take it. Because there's so much rich history in Freeport. Like we have, in this little community, I would put our community and our history up against anybody, because there's so much wonderful history here. And some of the people that have come from this community, I think that's what we need to do. We need to start fargaining, where we start enriching others, those who are trying, those who are actively trying to change the community. We need more of that. We need to enrich them. And we need to start putting more into this community, because we're always trying to take from it. Oh man, Freeport didn't have this, I'm leaving. And you'll learn all of this history, you'll get all this stuff here, and then you'll go out into the world and somebody else will get the benefit of having that. And so I feel like, man, there's so much here in Freeport. God brought me back here for a reason. And so my whole thing is to enrich it, to add my little piece into it. And not being afraid to really stand out. Because sometimes when you're on these kind of panels and doing these kind of things, it can get intimidating, because you're like, who cares about what I'm saying or what I'm thinking? But I really, for me personally, man, it literally was me being in the dirt, having to get into this soil and figure out who are the people here, and really start from the bottom and really build it back up. And so I think it's trying to find out what we can impart, put into the community, and what from that, what have we learned, what have we gained from it? And I think we teach that to our kids, and they can go out into the world and they have a different outcome.
I think for me, Freeport is a good place. I've tried to get my children to return, but for young people, they're so limited there's nothing here for our young people to do. And then we wonder why they hang on the corners and have house parties and shoot and fight. And, we have to go back to the old days. I remember if my neighbor left, I was responsible for that neighbor's house and everything that was on that property. Now we don't even hardly speak to our neighbors. So we need to go back to where it used to be in the beginning, where when we say, I love you, I mean that. And we're not there anymore. We don't even like each other, let alone love each other. And it's kind of difficult because we talk about unity, but we're so divided. And until we fix that, I don't know what we can do to make the repairs, because we walk past each other and won't even speak. You don't have to know someone to speak to someone. Good morning. And so we've got to go back to the basics, where love mattered.
And so when we are talking about racial healing, right, there's hurt that's there. And so one part of racial healing is forgiveness. And I think that really going back to, I may not have known or been there when that hurt happened, but once we forgive, we have to forget, right? We cannot keep carrying the hurt, or we cannot keep saying, well, I had nothing to do with it, so I don't feel the need to be a part of that process. And so we're hearing a lot of things that we individually can make changes that can be seen throughout our community, and that is really having a respect for each other in the community, showing love to each other, and really taking a chance on, making sure that we follow those foundations of good people, being good people in our society, in our community. And in the history, we'll continue to have that respect that we have for each other. Because being here, again, this is a great start. It really is. And so as we go into lunch and we are networking, Mrs. Howard brought up a good challenge. Speak to someone that you may not have spoken with at all today. And just get to know them and say hello and, continue to create good bonds, good relationships, and be positive people. Because this is a great work that we're doing, and it's a lot of healing that needs to be done and a lot of hurt that has been done, but this is a start and not an ending. Right? Thank you.